So it's been a few days since we've had some Overwatch League news, but now the New York Excelsior have graced us with their DPS line for 2021. Now, you will remember that the New York Excelsior announced a bunch of signings back along for their support line and their tanks. So they have Bianca and Yakpung as their tanks, and they have Jonak alongside Friday as their supports. Well, now we have their DPS line, and this is a very unbalanced New York Excelsior squad right now. They have 2 supports, they have 2 tanks, but they have 4 DPS players. It's going to be very interesting to see how this works out for New York. 3 of these players are completely inexperienced in the Overwatch League, and one of them is extremely experienced. So there is a good balance there, I would say, from experience to inexperience. And I think New York have kind of got the balance right with the amount of experience they got in the entire squad. But let's look into these players then. So, first of all, a lot of these players were rumoured to be going to the New York Excelsior. So, it's not too much of a surprise. But we are going to start off with a hit scan player. This is Guang Boon. So, Guang Boon is currently 17 years old. He was born on March the 1st, so he will be eligible for the Overwatch League when it kicks off. He's known for his Widow, Ashe and McCree. He's coming in from Team Cat. Now, Team Cat is a team in China. Now, Guang Boon is Korean, so it is an all-Korean New York Excelsior roster, which we weren't too sure about at the start of this transfer window, whether they would go all-Korean, but they've done indeed that. And Team Cat actually did really well, and he had then previous experience at CC Trainee, which is the academy team of Team CC, which Team CC is the academy team of Shanghai Dragons. It's a bit like Seoul Dynasty and Gen G with all these little academy teams, and he's definitely a prospect. I would put it that way. Team Cat did very well in Open Division China, and they also did pretty well in the Contenders China for Season 2 for Week 3, where they lost only to CC, Team CC, in the final of that week, which was actually a pretty monumentous result, beating some great older heads in the Chinese region to get that far. So he's clearly got some quality to him, and I think it's a good addition. It's definitely a build for the future, though. This is definitely a new Excelsior squad with eyes on the next few years, not just the next year. And I like it. I must admit. So, now we will come on to another of these DPS players. This is more of a flex or projectile DPS player. This is Feather. So Feather is coming in from Talon Esports. Talon Esports have done really well towards the end of this year in the Korean region. Talon Esports used to be in the Pacific region where they used to dominate. And when that Pacific region was closed, they were the champions and they were given the option to go to the Korean region and compete there. Now everyone was like, nah, this team is not going to survive. This team is not going to do anything in this Korean region. It's way too competitive. Except Talon had other ideas, rejigged their roster slightly, came back and actually did mighty darn well. Getting 4th place, I think, 4th or 3rd place, alongside big names like Runaway, O2 Blast, WGS, Gen G, Element Mystic. They really held their own against the big boys, and Feather was a big part of this. Feather, before that, was at Butlika, and Butlika was a team that stunned the Korean region in the Season 1 of this year. They, in Week 3, managed to win the entire week. And that's unheard of in Korea. A team coming up from trials and open division out of nowhere and being able to win against the biggest names in Korea, Runaway, Element Mystic. They beat these teams. It's an extraordinary feat and something to be extremely proud of. And Feather was a massive part of this. So, it is, again, a very big prospect to be signing. I like it, but it is a future prospect. It's definitely not one that is tried and proven. Again, with Talon Esports, he did well. He did really well in Korea for Season 2, and also did actually pretty well in the China Korea Invitational where they lost to Runaway. So I think this is a good signing for the New York Excelsior. I think actually this DPS line could be sneakily good. I'll put it that way. It's one to not underestimate. That's what I would say. So then we come into another hit scan player, Ashe, Widow, McCree, Sombra. This is Flora. Flora is from Team Diamond. So Team Diamond, again, a team that has been mid of the pack in Korea. They've been more towards the bottom at times when Flora was on Meta Athena. But he moved to Team Diamond in about June-ish time, June, July time. And they did well. They did well. They moved through Open Division in Korea. Actually, funny fact, they beat, to get first place in Season 3 of Open Division in Korea, they beat CC Trainee. The academy team of Team CC was actually competing in Korea. They didn't do too much when they come to the main tournament, getting around 7th or 8th. So it's not a massive one. I don't think Flora will be the starting DPS for the New York Excelsior. But with Meta Athena, he was kind of, yeah, it wasn't groundbreaking, let's put it that way. He did, however, have time at O2 Blast, where he did well in 2019, and he did have time at WGS Armament and Armament after that as well. So he has got a lot of history going back to 2018 in the Korean region, so he's experienced in Tier 2. But I don't think he's the starting DPS when I look at the rest of these DPS picks. Now, however, we come to the big boy. This is a player with a ton of Overwatch League experience, getting ever so close to getting those titles, but actually falling at the last hurdle. And you know what that means, it's probably a Philadelphia Fusion player. This is Ivy, the Flex Projectile DPS, ex-Philadelphia Fusion, ex-Toronto Defiant, moving into the New York Excelsior. Probably, alongside Jonak, the most experienced of this team. And he's been actually in more finals of cups and tournaments than Jonak has. Remember Philadelphia Fusion this year, they were finalists in the Summer Showdown, finalists in the Countdown Cup, they were second in the regular overall season, they were second in the North America playoffs, and they were fourth in the grand finals, so losing out to Seoul Dynasty in the end. But he's got a lot of experience, and before that he was at O2 Blast and O2 Ardiant, which again were good teams in Korea back in that day. But Ivy comes with caliber, that's without a doubt. I think, honestly, this is a great pickup from New York Excelsior because he's going to be able to lead and be the star name for this New York Excelsior DPS line, the most notable player aside from Jonak on this squad. And it's a loss for Philadelphia Fusion, like, they've replaced this guy with Shockwave. And I honestly think Ivy's better. I'd like to be proved wrong by Shockwave at the Philadelphia Fusion in 2021, so, you know, if I am, I'll eat my words. But Ivy is a great player, and he demonstrated that last year at the Fusion, and I think this is a very big signing for the New York Excelsior. I think it adds consistency to an unknown squad, and I think that's the balance that New York Excelsior are trying to build here. They don't want a London Spitfire, where London had Highly, and that was it in terms of Overwatch League experience, and it really didn't work. So they're trying to build a team that is balanced with experience, but also youth and innovation to take New York forward out of a squad that has been there for 3 years and unfortunately has not achieved what they wanted in the end. Even though it was a number 1 seed squad in the inaugural season, it still failed horribly in those playoffs. And so this is time for New York Excelsior to rebuild. And when you look at this squad, Bianca does have experience. He was playing for New York at the end of last season, albeit minor experience. Jonak has extensive experience in the Overwatch League now, so does Ivy. Yakpung has a little bit of Overwatch League experience back in the day. And then you balance that out with the new incoming and innovative nature of Gwangbun, Flora, Feather, and obviously Friday. It's an interesting balance in the squad, and I think it's a nicely balanced. It's nicely done. I think it's got more chance of success compared to the London squad we saw last year. That's what I would say. A lot of this will be down to coaching though. It'll be on the heads of IMT and Why Not to see if they can coach this team to success. That will be a major part of this. Pavane and Agape failed at London last year. And this is a very similar thing that we seem to be going down with New York Excelsior, albeit with them having a little bit more experience than the London squad had. But I think this is promising for New York. I don't think it's a team that can challenge the likes of the Dallas Fuel and Fusion and New York Seoul Dynasty and the San Francisco Shock. I think they're going to have too much experience, too much quality right now. But in the future, I think this team could be actually very good. And if so, New York Excelsior are doing this exactly the right way. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, I can't wait to see this new New York in action. But that is going to be it for this one. We are pretty much just waiting on London now. And I wouldn't be surprised to be hearing news from London very, very soon. Now the Gauntlet and the Atlantic Showdowns have been completed, there's nothing stopping Cloud9 in London announcing their roster. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see that coming up very, very soon, I'm sure. But I am going to leave it here. Obviously, the Discord is in the link in the description, along with the Illusion stuff as well, if you want to follow that and keep it up to date on how they are doing. But I will be leaving it here. So thank you guys so much for this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.